Yeah. No, I took the pills.
What?
Oh, I took 10 of them. It said no more than 2 per day, and I missed the last 4 days. So 10, right?
Right. No,
Yeah.
and I just kept hi everyone.
Happy Halloween, Scott.
Happy Halloween, Dave. Let me just get out of costume here.
Yeah. Let me
Oh,
put my
oh wait. Ha ha
putting my
ha.
costume on. There it is.
They said, "Hey, mask up," right?
That's right.
So I still masked up even more.
Oh man, Pi Day Friday again. I love how
Friday,
quickly
Friday.
these things come around.
Hey everyone.
Boy, that was no
Welcome.
warning at all from Michael. It's bam, live, no count in.
We were live. Hey, I'm Scott Jernigan,
I like
editor-in-chief
that
of
one.
Total
Boy, everybody's
Seminars.
piling up already.
What?
Oh, there's a lot of people piling up already, so good for them.
I gotta let
We'll tell
Lacey
them
out.
about that in a couple of minutes. Why don't you go ahead and take a walk? I'll talk. So, hi, everybody. It's Dave Rush here, and we're doing another Pi Day Friday. I am the senior instructor at Total Seminars, and every Friday, Mike Meyers has been kind enough to donate a couple hours of his old show and say, yeah, go ahead and do a Pi show. We try to learn a little something about using the Raspberry Pi as a learning tool for studying for CompTIA and just having some fun with Raspberry Pis.
Sounds good.
With me,
And I'm Scott
yeah, with
Jernigan,
me
as I
is
mentioned.
my partner in Pi. I've been waiting to say that for weeks. I've had it in my
Right.
notes and never got a chance. So greetings, partner.
Partner in Pi. I'm Scott Jernigan. I'm editor-in-chief for Total Seminars. I've been working with and collaborating with and writing books with and beating sticks of with Mike Meyers for a couple of decades. So, hey, welcome to Friday.
Yeah.
The day before my favorite day of the year.
I wouldn't call Halloween my favorite, but I do certainly look forward to it. And we didn't do anything this year. The neighborhood is by and large not doing Halloween, so we didn't put anything up to tempt anybody other than the cool stuff behind me here.
Nice. It looks good. It looks good. I have a kind of an elaborate candy delivery system. I have an old cow skull.
You did that, huh? Nice.
With a tube about 6 feet that's just like down the porch, and the little kids will be like there, and we'll be completely masked up and all in black. And
that's great. Well, your neighborhood does a pretty Halloween spectacular. Are they doing much this year?
People have gone full skeleton. There are skeletons everywhere.
Oh, good. That's what I did for the last 2 years. Well, let me see something here.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm catching the
places to go.
Go ahead.
All right. So we want to answer your questions. There's always a couple of new faces here. That's why we go through this every week, because I know most of you already know this, but post your questions. Let them be about A+, Net+, Sec+, anything CompTIA, anything technical. In fact, pretty much anything except religion and politics. But we do try to focus on Raspberry Pi. If your question doesn't get answered, if you don't want to post it online for whatever reason, contact us by email. Scott and I and Mike and Michael and the rest of the tech weenies over at tech support, Total Seminars perhaps. We eat up your questions. We roundtable them. We lab them, and we appoint somebody to answer them. So give us a ring at daveR@totalsem.com or my personal email, drushtx@yahoo. And catch Scott at scottj@totalsem.com. Find us on Steam. I'm BloodRushTX. He's Scarheart. Don't waste your time with the local seminars phone number. We're hearing very little in there. It's possible to get in touch with us, but we're a closed office like everybody else, so things behind the scenes are a little wonky. Hey, we're doing something else this week too. We're just kind of doing an experiment. We're sort of tracking our activity and things like that, participation in these YouTube things. And one of the things that we never did, we never wanted to, personally, because I hate it. I just hate those YouTubers who do that. Don't forget to like us and subscribe to us. But we'd like to try that for a couple of weeks. So we're going to put it out here down at the bottom. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Total Seminars channel. We're just going to see what the numbers look like if they change when we ask about this stuff and when we don't ask about this stuff. Don't worry, Mike's not going to ask you to do it. I got the the handle on that one. So a couple of weeks, we're going to ask you to subscribe and like the channel. And if it makes any difference to the higher ups down the road, then we'll keep doing it. If it doesn't, then consider this an experiment. Anything to add, Scott? Before
I'm just cracking up about what people are talking about on the live stream.
Okay.
Because it's all about how can I possibly not be using a trebuchet as my candy delivery system, right? For those of you who don't know, I've been in medieval and Renaissance reenactment for a long time. Mike and I have built several working trebuchets and ballistae. Yeah, so that would be fun, except they generally fling something like a cantaloupe about 100 yards. So yeah, it would kind of go over the kid's head.
Yeah, but the kids in Dallas will be able to enjoy it.
Right? Yes, and Andre, it is the one day of the year where I can just be normal. Yeah, I got that. Of course, that's why it's my favorite holiday. I dress up every year. And just,
I hope Andre, dresses up in his, I gather he does Western reenactments.
Nice.
Let me throw this up right quick and get this one out of the way.
Okay. Yeah, I popped the weekly special up in the live feed.
I'll follow up with that. So this week's weekly special, similar to last week's, 50% off all A+ and Net Plus Total Tester and Total Tester / Sims bundles. And right now, Sec Plus Total Tester, eventually it will include the Sec Plus Total Tester and Sims bundle. Scott is working diligently. The checkout code, I hear Mike list these off all week numerically, 10262020. It's the date of the Monday this week, right? 10/26/2020, if you're in US format. So go to totalsim.com, order your stuff. It's already really cheap and 50% off. It's that much better. It's good through this Sunday. And we haven't pushed this in a while. If you're a teacher, if you know a teacher who's teaching an active class right now, get them in touch with, or you get in touch with Kathy Y at totalsim.com. She has stuff for you. They have just blown the doors open to help out teachers and their classes, especially in these times when we're all working from home and the kids are at home and working remotely. So, oops, what did I just hit there? There's a menu above the share screen that I never ran into before. It's terrifying. Everything for me that new is terrifying.
So also, our one of our regular viewers, Jose Braden, has set up an unofficial Total Seminars channel Discord that we tend to hang out at. Certainly after our live shows. I just put the link in the live stream chat. So feel free to join us on Discord.
Very
good. Hang out. It's unofficial, which means we drop the button downs, break out
it's a little less politically correct.
Yeah, but politically incorrect.
It's laid back. How's that?
I'm going to go politics. I'm going to do one political statement today because, and that is vote. Very good.
I support that one. One of the few places, politically speaking, Scott and I see eye to eye. Hey, got to tell you guys, especially you old timers, as you may or may not know, I have been working this ongoing project, and I'm finally starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. It's still going to be probably 2 weeks or so before I finish my part of it gets handed off, but I have encountered a method that's really enabled me to sort of accelerate the process. And it's going back and watching every single AMA that we've ever done and indexing it so it'll be a lot more searchable on YouTube and through some other mechanisms. Yeah, it's not something I would wish on everyone or anyone, maybe a worst enemy. But what's really cool about these things is, especially as I got into the older ones, the very earliest ones, is seeing the names that are still here. Alan Duggan, Tullowit, been a couple of the Brandons here. Patricia, you weren't in that early, but it's just been so fun. And it's also been interesting. I've kind of made a list of names who were fixtures for a while. We got the point that we would mention names to each other in discussions behind the scenes. Oh, hey, did you see that comment from and they've sort of disappeared, but I'm not going to share them with you. But it's just a fun and very interesting thing.
It's been an interesting journey. I'm glad Mike started it, and just sort of created a little community. It's very fun. So Kevin Lopez just popped a comment in the stream that says, "Oh, hi Kevin, by the way." Best Buy has their SanDisk Extreme Plus 128 gigabyte, I assume, micro SD card on sale for $19.99.
Oh man!
So if you're working on your Pi,
and
you want to upgrade your Pi to a pretty serious card, that would be a
oh yeah, and I'm a super fan of the SanDisk Extreme and Extreme Plus lines. So goodness gracious, yes.
Yeah, $19.99. So if you're here in the States and can jump on Best Buy, go for it.
Yep.
It's a good deal.
All right, let's catch up on a few questions. Hey, after today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to start answering questions that get posted when the show starts, because so many people are going so far back in time that if I'm going to start this first question at 1:29, a half an hour before the show started, and that automatically puts us already a half an hour behind the 8 ball trying to catch up with the current ones. So by all means, check in, converse with each other. But if you've got questions for Scott or I, hold them until the show actually opens, because that's where we're going to start them after today, if you don't mind. Thank you so much.
For those of you who haven't been here on our Friday Pi Day thing with the Dave and Scott show, I'm watching the chat sort of kind of as we are answering questions on the monitor right behind my laptop. And then I'm looking at the live chat over here to the right. So I'll look over there sometimes, and while Dave is talking about something very serious, one of you guys will drop some ridiculous comment in the stream, and I'll start cracking up, and Dave's like, "What?" So that's what happens. Dave's all serious, and then
I'm all serious. Seldom has anyone accused me of that. All right, Telowit begins with a pun before we even open the topic. Way to go, man. I may just change the topic just to make that pun drop.
What? Good morning.
Neo flavor shot in somebody's foot. Okay. Oh, I know the weather is wonderful in our neck of the woods. It's cool and crisp, but not cold. It's the days that everybody would want to live in all the time.
This is yeah. It's like the one day a year in Houston, maybe 2 days a year where it's actually beautiful.
It's great.
Tarun,
welcome. I've seen you many times in Mike's. I'm glad you're here. You have never used a Pi, so you've come to the right place to talk about it at least.
Absolutely.
Hopefully by the time we get done with class today, you'll have your order placed wherever you buy Pis from.
And so just for the record,
Tarun is SA?
Yep. Just for the record, it's still Brendan, not Brandon, but just,
Okay, call it dyslexia. Brendan.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
What's going on? Okay. That was.
Yeah, because we were wearing.
The delay. Yeah.
We were masked.
And there's that.
Yeah. We were in costume when we first started. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know how other nations and countries celebrate Halloween, but this country takes it pretty seriously. So the other thing that's fun about Halloween is the next day is All Saints Day, right? And that's celebrated throughout the entire world. Of course.
And it's also Dia de los Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead, and kind of the celebration certainly in Mexico. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, primarily. And celebrating the Day of the Dead is a serious thing there. So it's very fun. And just to top it all off, my only son was born on November 1st.
Oh, wow.
So All Saints Day is when he turns 21 this year.
Very cool. Well, happy birthday to Simon if I don't see him.
So very exciting.
Sooner. Excellent. Hey, welcome, Justin Kinsey. What's up? It's Pi Day.
It is Pi Day. Exciting day. It's fun.
And we have just the simplest project today. It's going to go quick. It's a quick one. I won't extend on it too much. So we're going to spend most of the stream today talking with you guys, talking questions and expanding and expounding upon whatever you're asking and whatever we're thinking. Is that Keith Richards behind me? That's a Tullowit line. Nice job, Elbow. Kudos for that. Oh, that's Tullowit. Never mind. Sorry. Okay. I had an elbow highlight. Networks have been wearing masks for a long subnet mask.
That's funny because you're like, that's a Tullowit line. And it's like,
Yeah.
yes, it really was a Tullowit line.
Boy, there's a dad pun if ever there was. Well done, Tarun.
Right? No, that's great. I like it. Subnet mask.
You know, that's probably all over the techie forums. I just haven't hung out any place in the last day or two. Banana lived in China for some time, had to explain Halloween to everyone. It's not celebrated there. Be still, my heart.
Right?
Yeah, search for The Dave Rush on LinkedIn. No, The Dave Rush with Total Seminars on LinkedIn. Tullowit, I don't think I've gotten an invite from you yet. Certainly a lot of your brethren, buddy.
Yeah, Dr. Quinn, we're usually a little better about not talking over each other. Sorry.
I'm not. I have poor hearing. I can't hear him when he talks, and it's really worse when I look at the YouTube feed because it's on delay. So I always pre-apologize in advance for the interruptions that I'm going to do with Scott. Sorry. That's why we don't have you guys on voice. I would just keep interrupting you. Justin Kinsey's got a latency today. Check back later. Okay. Yeah, and you always just refresh the page too, but sometimes it's the YouTube CDN, the Google CDN that impacts you. Everybody's really tripping on your trebuchet concept of throwing candy. I love that.
That would be fun.
Ciao ragazzi. There we go. Alice Pazzi, nice to see you, my friend. So Alice said something a long time ago, I think in one of Mike's AMAs, and it's been tickling at the back of my consciousness for a long time. And so over the weekend or so this week, I accidentally ran into an installation that I said, oh man, given your guys' interest up to this point, I think we got a topic here. And so I've added to my litany of upcoming things in the not too distant future, adding a VPN to a Pi. We're going to do WireGuard is my plan at the moment. In just a couple of weeks, I've got only one more event on my firm. I'm going to do its schedule next Friday. I'm waiting for a piece of equipment that I ordered from China. It's not one that I'm going to expect everybody to buy and do this one. This is just going to be a fun demo, but it's not particularly expensive. You can spend about 35 bucks if you do what I did. And we're going to do an LED sign, you know, with 64 by 32 pixels that scrolls and does all kinds of other goodies. And it's just raw fun. And then I don't have anything firm out of my list following that one. And that one's not even firm if it doesn't arrive. I'm expecting it from the mailman today, but you know, that goes. So I'll be working up the next month's itinerary. And I believe I will have that WireGuard episode in there in the next month.
Exciting. That'll be fun. That'll be very fun.
Yeah. Somebody on one of the forums I hang on, it might have been the Discord forum today. Somebody posted that Udemy's got a one-day sale going on. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. There are Total Seminars courses there of every flavor, all the usual CompTIA fare, plus we've got CYSA and pen testing and lots of other goodies. Look for things with the word total in them and you'll find our stuff. And you know, don't tell the marketing department we told you to buy it for 12 bucks when we could sell it to you for 1,400. But if you don't get it today, you got to buy it for 1,400. No, they're still way cheaper than that on Udemy, even when they're not on sale. But yeah, take advantage of the sale.
Definitely jump on the Udemy sales.
Yep.
Because
I bought my Python class on Monday for 11 or 12 bucks.
Which one did you get?
a Python class. There's so many. I don't know how to answer that. I could go look up the title. I laid down a whole bunch of criteria, and one of them was I have no problem with foreign instructors or anything like that, but I do, with poorer hearing, have trouble with thick accents. So I had to go make sure I watched a preview of all of them so everything was comprehensible. And I got a course. It was about 17 hours worth of course from a Romanian instructor who's very clear. So I'm looking forward to this.
Sounds good. And
And
why?
I took,
So here's the question then. Why pick Python?
boy, if somebody threw that question out to me on the feed, I'd say, Scott, what do you think?
What I think is, when I ask my programmer friend,
I'll start it because people ask us all the time, what language should I learn? I'm new to IT, or I want to get into the IT field or something like that. And so that's not our field. We got Michael, who and our other members of our brain trust who are coders, and they speak a multitude of programming languages. But when we reached out to the professionals, to the educators, to the corporate environment and the production houses, and asked that question on your behalf, if somebody's going to learn a language, which one should they learn first? To a man, the answer is Python. It has all kinds of benefits going for it. It's got great features. It's got great power. It's an easy to learn syntax, and it's really incredibly flexible. Yeah, relatively speaking. Yeah. Unless you bust the class the first time, but you were kind of busy too. And then, maybe JavaScript after that, but it's so flexible and it's so pervasive in so many industries. We're seeing it in robotics, in data analysis, in controls. We use it here in our projects. So, man, Python, because it's Python. Why do we breathe air? Because it's a pretty good thing to do, and there's not many better alternatives.
Right. And Python, not only is it powerful, but it also has great responsibility.
It has great responsibility or responsiveness.
Responsibility. With great power comes.
Thank you.
Spider-Man. Okay. It wasn't me.
Sorry, I thought there was something hidden there.
Going with the live stream.
Got it. Got it. See, I'm passing 211. Andre, so you're rewatching all the vids. Did you learn anything? Yes, I do learn anything, because when I watch live with Mike, what I'm doing is reading questions in advance, and I have an idea of what Mike knows and what he's going to want to be jostled on a little bit. So as soon as I find a question that I think he might want a reference or something like that too, I'm off of it, and I'm doing the research and posting information in the back channels, or if I know that he's not going to get to it, then I get involved with the conversations here. Scott does the same. So yeah, I'm actually watching him for content now and not reading the YouTube chats, and it's a very different perspective.
Yeah, it's yeah. the way we do Mike's AMAs is very almost schizophrenic, because I mean, I'm looking at both live feed and the questions that Mike is answering, getting things in the back channel from Ian, from Dave, from Michael sometimes. Yeah. It's an interesting process, and one that is a lot more complicated than I would have expected, just watching other people do it,
212, Brendan S. has a very interesting question.
Let's see that.
It says, are we receiving a multicast address when we watch YouTube live videos? When would you receive a multicast address for a situation? Well, that's exactly right. Most of the time when you're watching a live event, sporting event, live television, these kind of live streams, yes, you're getting a multicast address. You probably, if you do a net stat, you may see some 229s in there. I'm not sure what the core one that YouTube is. If you're just watching regular YouTube videos, you're probably going to get a unicast. You are going to get a unicast. But yeah, for 97.75% of live events that you watch online, you'll be getting a multicast.
So yeah, very great question.
Yeah. Half of every stream because you're having. Alice is always picking on Elbow about lunch.
Well, I mean, at the live stream on Wednesday, she's like, I skipped dinner so that I can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and often our Europeans are often skipping evenings out with their friends just to hang
Right.
out with us, which is,
Yeah, right. Because we can't go out in the evening. Hope you guys aren't. I understand Europe is locking down again more and more. I know Andre has mentioned that he's expecting a little more tighter lockdown, and he just says at 2:15 canceled here because of some virus, huh?
what
I should
virus?
look into
What are you
that.
talking about?
Yeah,
I'm not going to go political.
that's right.
Okay. Thank you for the birthday wishes. I will let
Yeah,
Simon
indeed.
know.
Yeah, I coughed up his name. I apologize. My kid's name is Ben, just since I gave away Scott's son's name.
And Dr. Quinn at 216 was like, should I send you an Indian stick so you won't talk over each other? That's what I jumped in and apologized.
That was good. Likewise.
Yeah.
I've used
Okay.
those in meetings. I hit people with them. I'm trying to talk.
And yes, Andre,
Led's
I saw
the
that.
hunter today. No, I did lead the other day. I didn't have to do
The
that.
Mexican cerveza
Yep.
virus, yes.
Anyone have any experience with Unreal Engine 4? Can't find out how to add multiple materials to an object. We had one guy who was really into developing with Unreal Engine, Ford, but
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only we've had, Mike has dabbled in game design, including creating an entire Half-Life level that was our Total Seminars office, so that we could deathmatch, because that's what we do at lunchtime. You know, why not? We're geeks. We could deathmatch in our offices, including taking pictures of the art that we have on our walls and
oh, that's
including
awesome.
those pictures in the level. It was really bad because it was his first attempt at doing it. So it was buggy and clunky, but it was still cool being
That's
able
cool.
to.
Yeah, I never saw that. I probably joined very shortly after that. You were heavily into board gaming again by the time I joined.
Ooh, right.
So we were doing not Founders. What's the one with the sheep in the wood? I can remember the name right.
Settlers of Catan.
Settlers, right.
Right. So yeah, we went through I'm still pretty heavily into tabletop gaming with my friends. It got so bad at Total Seminars that our boss, Dudley,
I remember
came
that.
in one afternoon when we were literally 2 hours into a game, and he's like, "I'm not paying you to play these games." I'm like, oh, sorry. Yeah. So we could have dialed back a little bit.
The message. 219. Tarun, do Pi require a case and a cooling fan? Here in India, Amazon sells some Pi kits with quite a number of small components. I get confused. So we had the founder of the Raspberry Pi on a few weeks ago, Dr. Evan Upton, and that question gets asked a lot of him here. Mm-hmm. And his answer is, we didn't address the case, he addressed cooling. And he says, unless you're running the thing flat out, all 4 cores fully engaged 100% of the time for long periods of time, he does not believe that you need additional cooling. I have many, many Pis here. Only one of them has additional cooling, and that's because I bought it used from somebody and it came with it. As far as the case, I am going to recommend a case. I've been running one here for a couple of weeks without a case, and I've been terrified that I'm going to spill something on it or that I'm going to slide it onto something conductive and short it out. So for that reason, a well-ventilated case goes a long way. Tell you what, take over, Scott. I'm going to grab something.
Okay. And so the real question then is, how many Pis do you have running, Dave? The answer is more than 5. Probably.
Yeah, I got 5 sitting here on my desk. I have another handful running around the house, and the ones that aren't running upstairs bring the total fairly near 100. Over here on the side, I started grabbing up 4s as soon as they came out.
Dave,
and I've used up all my 2 gig ones, and I got 4 gig ones here waiting for
Dave,
projects.
Dave,
Yes.
I think it's time for an intervention.
So we bought a 3D printer at the office. In fact, we bought a couple of them in order to do some of our A+ video shoots. And while they were idle, I went and downloaded some Pi chassis, I think is the right word. I wouldn't call these enclosures, but these are really cool. They've got little stands here designed to where the holes go, and there's a lid that's got, you can't see them very well in the camera view here, but yeah, there you go. That's a good view of them. So we mount the Pi in here and mount this, and of course you can't beat this honeycomb ventilation. It keeps them from getting shorted out by sitting on something. Wouldn't stop anything good from spilling on them, but it provides wonderful cooling. So I don't use any cooling on any of my Raspberries except the one. I'll bring that one out one of these days to show you. It's a project that is not a difficult project to do. You got to buy some equipment for it, including a GPS. But I don't think what it does holds much interest. It's a kind of a pilot aviator oriented thing that tends to be kind of a niche. By the way, this is the official Raspberry Pi 4 case, made and sold by Raspberry Pi. And I think what's worthy of note about this one, maybe I can get the lid off. I'm going to break it, I feel it. Note that there is no cooling holes in here. Huh. So if Raspberry Pi thinks it doesn't need that much ventilation, you know, unless you're going to stick it in a 140-degree attic, I can't get it off, and I'm not going to keep trying. Something will go.
Don't break it, Dave. Don't break it.
Yeah, it's like opening up a bag of potato chips, huh?
That's right.
Okay, Tullivan, I'll look for that as soon as we get offline here and done with Discord.
So
God,
Patricia,
find the link for Discord. Okay.
Patricia jumped on the Python 3 class you got.
Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, I think she was the one who mentioned that there was a sale or was involved in that conversation. Welcome to Python 3 Complete Masterclass. I love that idea. 17 hours, you can go from 0 to master.
Masterclass.
Take that with a big grain of salt, but I like the title.
Very much so.
Oh, cool. Justin, you're a basketball coach. Nice. I see. Okay, I super scrolled just when I saw the great responsibility line.
Lots of people are talking about the bee pie, the pie cage, the pie hive, the honeycomb pie.
I like Pie Hive. I've got one of them over here that I've actually, my Plex and Cody server are sitting in a blue one of these.
Nice.
Because that's something that Dudley won't yell at me at. All I can do is walk over to the printer one time, get it started, and I can walk away. But the first few efforts, if you ever 3D print, those first few times you're going to have to babysit, and they are going to screw up.
Yeah, wow. 3D printing is like, it's a lot more complicated than I had anticipated. And it's like there are a couple of different tiers in 3D. I don't know if you guys have experimented with it or not yet. But there are a couple of tiers of 3D printers. There are the ones you can afford, like the several $100s, maybe a little less, that almost universally, I can't say that on live TV, are not good. They're hard to use, right? The things stick, and you have to do all kinds of extra things to be able to make good prints. And then you have the big jump, like add a zero, you know, to the $3,000 or $5,000 range, and then you get ones that are epic, and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with, right? But there's nothing in kind of that, or at least when we bought last summer. Yeah. There wasn't anything in between. So we got.
I'm always keeping my eye out. I can't find anything, even in the used market, that fits that price niche.
Yeah, but they're very fun. And it's like all the crazy hacks you have to do to be able to get clean prints off. It's like, oh, you take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and you kind of slowly slide that over the thing, and you work the plastic off the glass. And it's like, Really? So they're still very much in the enthusiast category as opposed to the professional category until you get into the really high.
Until you get into the professional category, and then when you get into that pro category, the world changes too. It doesn't use the hobbyist spools of PLA plastic. They've got resins and all other kinds of wacky fun material. Alice, you're right. At 221, it kind of leads you down a road here. She mentions that there was a Python for cybersecurity course. If you go look for Python classes in Udemy, there's 5,400 of them or some insane number like that. And there are some that are learn Python, everything you wanted to know about basic Python. And then there are others that are just specialty niche focused, like cybersecurity, like automation. So yeah, there's a lot to work from. Kevin likes automation.
Yep.
Alice, I saw your message before about, I think I'll do this anyways because the rest of the Italians aren't doing anything fun. So
gave up food and social life to be with us.
Oh man. Okay, completely unrelated story, but because we got time to kill today, I have the world's oldest phone. It's going to stop working the first week of January. My carrier has changed technologies and they're going to kill its functionality. But this is an old Galaxy S4 that I keep milking along. I put a new battery in it last year. That's inhuman. And so I took it off Uncle Charger this morning and I set it over here, my work area, and I'm doing some work. And I wanted to look at it for something and there was no lights. There was no activity. And I pressed buttons and nothing happened and it was horrible and terrible, and plugged in and I plugged into different charges and different cable and oh rats, it's dead. And I figured that if I could just open it and get the battery out and reseat it, that would fix it. But you need heat guns and spudgers, and you know what? I got a pie to AMA to do today. I am not doing all that. So I jumped in the car to go to the local phone fix-it shop. And as soon as I pulled out of the driveway, I got red blinking lights in the car about out of coolant. When it rains, it pours, right? So back in the driveway, and fortunately, it was just the overflow reservoir was a little low. Get some water in there, take it over to the phone repair guy. He looks at it, he gets my symptoms, accused me of all the usual things. Have you dropped it in water? And no, it's just I picked it up, it was dead. I've tried this and that. I'll get you a cable, hang on. And he plugs it in, he says, what's your problem? And it just functions like it booted up, it was down, but oh, let me see, yep, okay. And we shook hands. I thanked him and shook hands. I don't do that during COVID. I ran home and washed and scrubbed and bathed in Clorox, but crisis averted for another month until I get to replace it. And otherwise unrelated to anything.
Yeah, and so I agree with Telowit. Heat guns and spudgers. That sounds like our Friday night. Oh,
yeah. You mix that with a little bit of Chateau Le Gâteau and you're all set.
Chateau de Gâteau.
You
really?
like that? I mixed that. I did that on purpose. That was totally conscious.
Nice. If only you knew how to say cat piss in Spanish. Then
yeah, well, I do, but I won't. I have a tough time saying it in English. I'm such a prude. Yeah, that's, you know what? Okay, so, everybody at Total Seminars, at least all the geek types, are into gaming, and some of the less geeky ones as well. And there is no way that a crowd like you guys don't have a large representation of gamer types. Sounds to me like the Discord channel is a good place, to start putting that together.
Right.
If nothing else, to get together for a common Steam game.
If you haven't, experienced it yet, there is a Steam game called Tabletop Gaming.
Wow. So
you can do the games that we always enjoy, the tabletop games like Settlers of Catan or Pandemic. Right.
I was going to ask you about Pandemic.
Yeah. Pandemic is great. And I think, as my son put it yesterday, do you think that maybe because we played this so much, it caused the pandemic.
Just like Ouija board.
Maybe. But anyway, Tabletop Simulator, you can actually play all of these games via the internet with multiple perspectives, and usually you have a Discord channel running in the background so you can chat with your friends as you're playing, and it ends up being a very interactive and fun experience. So worth looking into. It's not that expensive, especially we're should be hitting the Steam winter sale here in another month.
Coming up.
So.
Ooh.
Yeah.
229 Tullowit, you don't know how right you are. Yesterday was cold here. It is the first day in 4 months that I didn't wear shorts. So today I thought probably cool enough, I'll wear pants too. And had I been wearing shorts, I would not have gotten up. I don't have the confidence in my knees that Mike does.
This is actually, yesterday was the first day I have not worn shorts in months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I should. So
I'm passing up all the names for the printers, the Pi Hive, and I'm now passing 2:31. We're catching up on the game here.
Yep, we're almost there.
We'll do our shindig probably about on the hour unless questions start to dry up before then.
Okay, sounds good.
I see, Kevin, I don't have enough dead ones. If I had dead pies, I would probably do, like a gingerbread house, doll house kind of thing with dead pies. That'd be interesting to sort of put the word out on nationwide Craigslist. Hey, if you got a dead pie, I'll pay you a couple of bucks for it, just for a little art installation. I wonder if your daughter, who's heavily into art, could do something like I gave her a pile of pies.
Dead pie art. Yep, exactly right.
I like the name. Yeah, they come with a fan. I bought a couple of kits, Connor, at 232 with power supplies and some other goodies, and they all came with a little fan and the little heat sinks on them. I didn't install them in anything, but I always have them if I want to do something in a hot spot. I've been thinking about building a kind of sat nav using a Pi to use in my car, sat nav radio and whatnot. They exist. Project works fantastically. I'm envisioning 2 projects that if you put them together on one Pi would be done. There's a lot of folks. There's a sub forum. There's probably a subreddit for car Pi or auto Pi. It goes by one of those 2 names, where people do integrate Pis into their cars. My pleasure, Tarun. Brandon was the one who mentioned the sale. Okay. Hey, there's a new name for me. You're for Raymond. I want to 3D print myself a Tesla. Me too, especially the electric motors and the LiPo batteries. Well, wait till we can print that stuff at home. Heat Guns and Spudgers also sounds like a really good, first of all, t-shirt, and second of all, band name.
Add that to our t-shirt collection.
Putty and VNC.
Friday night.
Yeah. Kevin at 238. I see that Putty and VNC have mobile apps. Has anyone tried using it on their Pi? How's the experience? Stop ringing me 800 number. You know you're a scammer. Over there. I have not used either. I have used several VNC on mobile. I use Real VNC and Tight VNC on mobile. They're both fine. I've never bothered with Putty because I use a different SSH. Putty is really cool. Putty is super flexible and can do all kinds of things. And I don't do all kinds of things. If I'm going to establish some kind of serial type, textual type connection with a host, it's always SSH. So I have a single app that just does SSH. But I'm sure Putty will do fine.
I know. I'm just like cracking up here.
Watching a conversation here between Elbow and Alice and a couple others related. Yep. Can't wait for Cyberpunk on PS5. I've never played Cyberpunk. You?
We Simon and I are. It's on our wish list. It just got delayed. We are definitely getting it.
Oh no. Okay.
But yeah, it's going to come in full price, like in the $60 plus range.
I say full price is always $63, $64.
So, but it's his birthday, so gotta do it, right?
Yep.
But yeah, it was supposed to be here specifically, literally the day before his birthday, which would have been
Oh
perfect.
man.
But, oh well, little
How
delay.
cold is it for us guys in Texas? I'm going to guess right now 72 Fahrenheit. So about 22 to 23 Celsius.
Hey Siri, what's the temperature outside?
Oh, come on. It's right there on your main screen. It says 61, a little colder.
66 down here.
Okay. Yeah, well, this just says Houston, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
18 Celsius.
so when it dropped down to below 50, that's when I broke out my fur coat and my fur hat.
The missus and I have kind of a standard observation. We'll call it a joke. If the temperature here ever drops below 70s, start watching the women's feet. You will see the UGG boots and all the other kinds of boots.
Right.
We come from up north in the cold. We put boots on when there's snow out.
And I have only lived in the South. So for me, yeah, I have been skiing, so I know what cold is like. But yeah, that's not something that I choose for myself.
Yeah. The kids had seen cold weather when we go up and visit the relatives on occasion, but obviously it doesn't make it down here. They got a good dusting of it at his university this week.
Nice.
Can't wait to send pictures and temperature reports.
Yeah, but it's
Unreal Engine 4 has a material editor that allows you to plug in images into different physical properties. That's cool.
You are caught up, man.
Yeah, I am. Dave needs a hay pie. You know, I look into stuff like that now and again. I don't look deeply, but there is no way that somebody asked this once and I did some research on it, but my results were vague. Surely somebody has created an isolated, self-contained Siri, Alexa controller, voice control thing that handles everything locally only, and that runs on Pi, but I haven't found it.
So
Justin's in North Florida. So is Patricia Grace. She's in the Northeast side. I used to wear Scott's hat when I was in Moscow at minus 33.
and it'll actually take you there. I mean, it's very warm. So.
All right. Well, questions are drying up. So let's take a look at Dave's notes.
Okay. Sounds good.
Things I've missed. And there's only one really challenging thing with my project today. Oh, man.
Tell us what your project is today, Dave.
Say again?
Tell us what your project is today.
Yeah, I wish I would. Well, something is weird here. Hang on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. It always happens to me,
Drop
right?
that?
It's not like, I'm not like Mike. I try everything and I make notes on everything. I just seem to have closed my notes. There it is. We'll just reopen it. We can do that.
No, it was the open-ended. Something is weird here today.
Yeah.
Like, oh, really?
All right.
Low-hanging fruit, man.
That's me. Let me rephrase that. That's my line.
Wow.
We threw a 50th birthday party for me some years ago at the clubhouse up here, and no gifts or anything like that, but there are some people who just have to bring a gag gift. And so somebody brought me a big bottle of wine that we kind of drank, but it was called low-hanging fruit wine. It was a nice double entendre.
Right. There you go. But was it created with people stomping the grapes barefoot in Italy?
Close. This was a specialized Italian wine where it was foot stomped, but by cats. All right. So let's remind ourselves quickly where we've been.
Okay.
And then how we're going to get where we're doing today. So just a week ago, you probably remember it, we installed a power switch to a Raspberry Pi. It's a really simple switch, a momentary switch, and some terms that I didn't define last week. We're going to get into electronics, It's called an NO, or normally open switch. So it's got two bare wires sitting in the switch housing, just waiting. We'll make these our two bare wires for some electrical contact to bridge those two wires. There's also switches that are the opposite. They're normally closed, NC, and you manipulate the switch in such a fashion that it opens, and when you let it go, it closes again. And then there's switches that you toggle back and forth. So we use a normally open momentary switch. It's only closed while you hold it down with a finger or a thumb or a book or whatever. And we hook that up to a pair of pins on the GPIO header. That's those 40 pins that all Raspberry Pis have. Earliest ones had 26. And we have created a little piece of software to watch those two pins. And if they ever became shorted together, then if the Pi is running, shut it down. And if the Pi is shut down, power it up. So it's a pretty simple thing.
Okay.
So we're going to extend that a little bit this week. Now, we have done an LED project in the past where we hooked up an LED to a couple of pins on the GPIO, and then we used a part of a LAMP server, a PHP web server, and sent commands to those pins that said, provide power to the LED or don't provide power to the LED, and we could turn it on or off by clicking a box on the web page. So let's marry that concept now. We're going to take a simple LED circuit. I'm going to hook it up to a couple of pins on GPIO, and as simple as this sounds, it's just going to turn on when the Pi is up and running and turn off when the Pi isn't. Well, duh, you say. I know when it's running and when it's not. Well, maybe you do and maybe you don't. In fact, I actually found this thing to be incredibly useful, or would have been incredibly useful, when I was practicing labs. Let me turn on the other camera for just a second. It's pretty bright in here, and you may have a tough time seeing what I got to show you, but kill that light, change cameras. That's over here. Bingo, camera is changed. Okay, so you can see, kind of sort of, by my finger is a little bright LED. It's so bright, it sort of blasts out the camera. And what you can't see very clearly over here is my wiring and my little green LED that's power on, power off. The problem with this light is it's always on. As long as there's power plugged into the Raspberry Pi, that light turns on forever, even if it's in shutdown mode. So I was trying to access the thing. Let me switch back now to me. Let there be light. With my VNC, my terminal, whatever, my real-time video takeover screen and keyboard program, and it wasn't connecting. And I didn't know if it was because I had turned the Pi on or off, or if it was something else. Clearly it had power to it. So I just powered it down by yanking the chain and waiting a minute or so, and powered back on by yanking the chain and waiting a minute or so, and then try to access it. And hey, good news, I couldn't access it. So it wasn't something wrong with the Pi, it was something wrong further down chain. And of course I did a little poking around, found a loose Ethernet cable, got it picked up and running. But it would have been really useful had I had that power on, power off status LED running, and I would have known the thing is up or the thing is not. So that's what some of the use of this thing. And it's also great for looking at it from great distance. I see you chuckling. There's not many messages past what I got highlighted, but I'll check later. All right, back to notes. So that's what we're going to do today. And now let's add a little bit of complexity to the game. Okay. If you do this as a standalone project, we're going to use a tutorial at the How-To site, like we used for last week's project. I'll put that up on the screen in just a second.
Okay.
If you are doing this for the first time, you didn't mess around with our power on-off button, you did that, but you've taken it out, then you can follow his tutorial exactly. If, however, like I did, you want to leave the power switch, the power button in place and put the LED, we're gonna have to make a minor modification to his project. So let me put this project up on screen. All right, so it's https://howto.com, and I'm not going to read this all to you. Too many uppercase and there's no uppercase and lowercase issues, but too many letters and numbers. Freeze the screen or catch this in the archive an hour or so after the show, and you can follow along. There really isn't much to follow along. You can do everything that he does in his tutorial just by watching what I'm going to do. And this is so simple, you don't need instructions for the most part. We got to work out how to wire up the LED. That just takes a moment. And then the typing portion of it is one command, and it's already in a config file most likely. And if not, it's a really easy one to add. And one little configuration thing in the Pi automatic configuration utility. So this thing is an insanely simple project. All right, so that's what we're going to do today. I want to do one of the things that we've been doing here for the last couple of weeks before we get started on the project, and that's kind of news of the week, if you don't mind. Anything good to answer here before I start that, Scott? We're looking to?
Nope, go for it.
Okay, you were chuckling pretty good there.
Oh,
yeah,
Tella would put a picture of cat pee on a gooseberry bush, Sauvignon Blanc. From New Zealand, the photograph, it just got real, okay?
Alice, make sure you put up there how to say cat in Italian. You can do it in about 3 or 4 or maybe 5 other languages, but never tried Italian. I'm feeling Tullowit's going to build on it. Okay, so I've been doing every week sort of interesting news and tidbits of the week that have come up. And some of you guys on the Discord channel jumped on this fairly quickly. The second I heard, I jumped on this one because this was just fun. Ubuntu. And just let's be aware of their name. Ubuntu is the name of their distro Linux. The name of the organization or company that makes and manages Ubuntu is called Canonical. So they're not used interchangeably. Just wanted you to be aware of that. Canonical releases 2 versions of Ubuntu. One is called the LTS, the long-term support. That's it. And I think they're running in the series 18 dot something right now. And then they have a short-term series that they release and support for 9 months at a time. The long-term one, they typically support for 4 years before they force an update, at least 2 years. So they released a short-term version called 2010, 20.10, and they give them all these funky names. Ubuntu names are always an adjective and an animal, and they're always alliterative. So this newest, latest, greatest one is called Groovy Gorilla. The next one, we already know what the adjective is going to be, and they're polling right now to find out what the animal is going to be. The adjective is hirsute, Hirsute, which means hairy. And so everybody's jumping in on what animal it's going to be, from hamsters to hyenas, hedgehogs. That's the one I'm voting for.
Hippos.
Hippo is the first one that came to my mind after horse. Nonetheless, so they just released Groovy Gorilla. And the point of these short-term releases is basically sort of a broad beta testing, what people do with them, what they like, what they hate, and then good features get incorporated into the next long-term support release.
Right.
Well, as soon as this came out, they did something really new and cool. There has always been Ubuntu versions for Raspberry Pi, but they've never come officially out of Canonical. People have modified stuff and made it work on Pi.
Gotcha.
Well, this of course is available for x86 and AMD processors. And that was the first thing I did. I installed it into a virtual machine on the machine I'm using right now. And then they said, you know, we totally are going to support officially Raspberry Pi and ARM products, ARM-based computers. And so Groovy Gorilla was immediately released for Raspberry Pi, and That's the second thing I did with it, is I downloaded it and installed it. It's an interesting installation, and I'll show you a little something about that in just a moment. But holy Hannah, you can't tell the difference between the two of them. And what it brings to the table is a whole bunch of new goodies. But the biggie that it brings is a thing called microclouds. And this has totally mangled the definition of cloud for me. I envision a cloud is that remote thing that I don't own, but I can control, I can lease, I can buy use of. But it's, you know, it's operated by Amazon, or it's operated by Microsoft or Google, or whoever the big cloud owner operators are. This is a place that says you can install your own cloud services that do many of the types of services that those big names do in your PC, in a server, in a Raspberry Pi. And here's the one kind of example that I want you to think about. This is really sort of slick. The type of web server that we build here is a nice little standalone server. It's got some power. It's got dynamic capabilities if we make LAMP servers, but it's a web server. It's all kind of self-contained. When you get into the big boy world, web servers are not self-contained. They have their data storage in a server over here, and they have search engines or other kind of active engines over here, and they have the part that sends you HTML code over here, and they're all interlinked and working together. Well, that's what you can do now with this version of Groovy Gorilla. You can build microclouds that have all kinds of little mini servers. They're kind of like virtual machines. In fact, they are virtual machines, but they're very tight little virtual machines. So you can get bunches of them on a 4 gig Raspberry Pi, much less an 8 gig. And you can develop then your web system just like you would do on the big buy frames. And it doesn't have to be development. You can function. You can say, hey, this is my corporate cloud, and I'm not using Amazon anymore. There's still obviously plenty of places for that, for the worldwide support and for the performance and things like that. But if you've got a company that says, hey, I've got a resource that I want to make available just to my corporate environment, or maybe to select customers and things like that, you may not need to go out and lease from the big Amazon. Microclouds. It's a really cool concept. I've just started playing with it. I'm not a cloud guy, so I'm in over my head. I'm going to get some help from Michael if I choose to dive any further. But if you or your company or the group that you're contracting for or something like that is looking for a cloud development platform, this may be it. Now, you're not going to stake your stake into this one permanently because this has only got 9 months worth of support. But I think if it gains any kind of ground, we're going to see that incorporated into the long-term Ubuntu's.
Cool.
Yeah, very. Okay, so what was I going to show you about that? This thing. Oh yeah, this is cool. So if you want to install Groovy Gorilla on your Raspberry Pi.
And who wouldn't?
And who wouldn't? First thing you want to do is use the official Raspberry Pi imager. Don't use SD-Write32 or MicroWrite or whatever that thing is. I've been using for a long time, but it needs this. So you can get that, the Pi imager from raspberrypi.org, whack downloads. And then you get the image and the instructions on how to use these things. It's not intuitive. You're going to download an image file. It's 1.6 gigs. It's not very big. And then when you use the imager, it looks at the thing you downloaded, and within that download is a whole bunch of versions of Groovy Gorilla. And it looks a lot like the Noobs installation menu, if you've ever seen that. So you got to pick one and install it. And after that, it's pretty easy. And there are some things where you'll need the instructions that are on this page, and it walks you through, okay, now go to the next page and do this step. Now go to the next page and do this step. And some of that stuff's not particularly intuitive, but very interesting. All right. Notes. Anything else? Okay, did that. I used this, I did mine on a Raspberry Pi 4 gig. That's what they recommend. Excuse me. And Yeah, the 64-bit image. Yes, that's correct.
to the Raspberry 4
Yes.
to do a full-blown Ubuntu.
Right. And they're recommending, they say it may work on the other previous Raspberries and on ones with less than 4 gigs, but they're not officially supporting those. There's lots of reports of people who've installed them there, but it looks like the 4 gig or the 8 gig, if you really want to do this for real, is the way to go.
Okay, sounds good.
I did something so that you all might consider. This is just, again, kind of tips of the week. A couple days before all this happened, I looked in my list of virtual machines in VirtualBox and said, you know, there's some that I haven't run in a while. I'm going to fire them all up one by one. I don't have that much memory in this machine, and do an upgrade on all of them. That was a better part of a day project. So if you find yourself in those same shoes, if you got a lot of VMs and you're not willing to delete them or anything like that, maybe once a month, go through and upgrade your machines. All right. The next thing in my notes is the project. I'm going to go back and take a look at questiones, because I know Alice has put in how to say cat in Italian.
She did.
Banana done a lot of research on speech recognition, and local stuff just doesn't work properly. Yeah, I think that's true. Google has an add-on DIY voice interpreter that still has to phone home and work with Google to do really good voice analysis and recognition, speech analysis. And I was just reading an article yesterday about a new product that kind of encountered the same problem. They said, you know, we tried to do our own library in-house. It's too big. It takes too much AI. So they built a little front-end voice interpreter that understands a couple dozen words, hey, device kind of phrases, and then it buffers up whatever you say next, and it calls the Google API. So yeah, home-based, true, insulated, isolated speech recognition as a way to go.
Yeah, we're a pretty heavily invested Alexa house. So lots of home automation stuff, and basically, Alexa, do this for me.
And did your Alexa just wake up?
She wakes up. She's listening all the time.
Watching one of Mike's old videos, he purposely shouted, "Hey Google, what time is it?" And I just tripped everybody's in the same way he did.
Always fun.
All right, everybody is still talking temperatures and fans.
Yeah, we just we nailed Tullowit just now. Way to go, Dave.
Jernigan, it is real. I shouldn't have been surprised. Kiwi wine. That sounds good.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So Justin may be interested in the tabletop gaming from Steam. How are we doing here? About 10 minutes behind. That's okay.
Yeah, we're good. I do.
Gato. Oh, shoot. That's same as Spanish. I was there.
Yeah, gato.
Okay.
I like the catfoot line.
Yeah, me too.
That's a good line. Very good line.
Cat in Italian is sausage. Thank you, Tullowit.
And of course, Andre at 257.
I would have picked a different country for that, but it would have been politically incorrect. So.
At 257, Andre gave us the full line. Vino di Pizio di Gatto.
Yes. The Cattuccini, Alfredo is very good. All right, I'm not reading any more of those.
I know, right?
I'll just get humped up. Yeah, humpback. We thought about that, but we figured that that's an additional adjective. You guys, you are amazingly creative people.
Yes,
Not eat for lunch. Get over it. Oh, come on, man. We're only halfway through. All right. Hope you get back to catch the end when everybody says, "Oh, wow, that's the best thing I've ever seen." But then I'll pull a mic and delete it from the archive.
Right. we're still kind of going back and forth on that.
Yeah. Will full 307 Connor Wellman, will full Ubuntu work on a 2007 MacBook, or do I need to use Mate? Nothing works on a 2007 Mac, right? I mean, DOS, if you use the emulator.
Mac OS. That's a pretty old machine, though.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I know nothing about Mac. Second of all, I do nothing but deride them. And third of all, can't imagine anything working on a Mac that's the little square one, right? The cubic one.
Michael Smyer is spinning in his grave right now. Right now.
Kevin, 309, what do you think about 5G on phones? I feel like companies are trying to create hype for it, but no one really cares. No, I think everybody cares. This is the advance of technology. What did you think about 3G when 2G was still a thing? What did you think about 4G when 3G is still a thing? This is the next step up.
So it was interesting because not Michael Solomon, Tom Carpenter, one of our SMEs for multiple Total Seminars based Udemy classes and video classes. He's also the vice president, something like that, of the Wi-Fi, like a big Wi-Fi industry group. So he's like, this is his thing. And he came in right before the whole lockdown stuff happened, and we were still able to film in our studio, and did just a Q&A with us. And that was the big question that was burning in, I guess, December, probably, like 5G. Do we need this? What is this for? And he's like, the marketing people need you to need 5G. But as far as like the actual use of this, it's going to be epic in things like stadiums, where you've got tons of concurrent devices trying to connect. That's where it's going to be amazing. But as far as just straight up, is this going to make your cellular life better? Not really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't imagine many people are disappointed at, when you have a good 4G connection, how slow it takes a page to load up, because they load up more than quick enough to satisfy most people's needs.
Yep.
But once it's all up and running, you'll say, man, remember when we only had 4G? They added line, Telewit says they've added some Linux tools to Chromebooks. Yes, I saw that in the news, that they were basically putting full-blown versions of Linux into Chromebooks. So, and you set one up yesterday. Very cool. Yeah, I will look into that. All right, I'm caught up.
Okay.
So let's install an LED. So I'm doing this on a 3B. There's no difference in any version of Raspberry Pi, from the original B to the A to the 0, the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. They all have the same pins that we're going to talk about. They're all in the same place. It doesn't need any particular size of micro SD card or SD card, because we're not adding any software to it. We're just going to run one command, and we're going to run one configuration utility. So it's cool. I talked about why it was valuable for me, because it would have been good to know if the thing was running or not.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have to add any software. So what do we need? You need a Raspberry Pi that works. So all the requisite things that go with that: a power supply, an SD card. If you're going to hook it up to a keyboard and monitor, tick, tick, what am I missing here?
Nothing.
Okay. You're going to need an LED,
saying.
Simple, cheap dot
need
LED that you can get online, and a 330 ohm resistor. Now, I mentioned this in a project a while back. I'm going to stick this up. I don't get any remuneration for this. They don't know that I'm pushing this. Is that upside down? No.
No, that's right.
Okay, yeah, I got the backward camera view. All right, so this is a kit that I bought a while back. This kit you can pick up for 20 bucks on eBay right now. It's from Rex Qualis, all one word, QUALIS, and this is their electronic component basic kit. Every hardware project that we've done so far, I've been able to do with the stuff that's in here. And for the most part, I intend to keep it that way. For all my little projects that are up and coming, I think it's a worthwhile expenditure if you want to learn a little bit about hardware and practice it, to cough up the 20 bucks for that kit. That's going to serve us for the next year or two, as long as we can continue to do these projects. I am going to buy a few more things here and there that will go above and beyond that kit, but you don't have to do this. You know what? You don't even have to do this one, but the LED was in there. There was tons and tons of different resistors and values in there. There's jumper cables in there. There's LEDs.
What's the name?
Breadboard in there. There's power supplies. So
What's the name?
Rexqualis, one word.
How do you spell it?
REXQUALIS.
Got it.
It's their
Okay.
electronic component basic kit. They have other kits. So you need a pi, you need an LED, you need a resistor, and a couple of jumper cables. And at that point, then you can make a decision. Do you want to learn to solder? Do you know how to solder? If so, a little solder, a little soldering iron, and some tape, and you can build it as a self-contained thing, which I think you should. Or there's a breadboard in that kit, and you can do the whole thing on a breadboard just to kind of demonstrate and learn for your own purposes. You can also purchase, I ordered, and it didn't arrive yet from where I ordered it from, I don't think it was overseas, a little push button switch that has an LED in it, like one with a that power symbol on it. It'll have 4 wires coming out of it, 2 for the switch and 2 for the LED. And I think that's a really cool self-contained thing. They're about $6 or $7. And again, I ordered it, but it hasn't arrived. So I'm doing all mine on breadboard today. All right, let me bring up a graphic. That's a good one to bring up.
Beautiful.
Thanks. It gets even better as we go on. Kaboom, Katie. All right, so this is the pinout of the Raspberry Pi. We've seen this before, and I want to just talk a little bit about a couple of things that are going on here that we haven't explored yet. There are, let's call it 4 kinds of pins here. Some that provide just power all the time, like this pin 1 always provides 3.3 volts. As long as the computer's on, as long as the Pi is on, it's providing 3 volts. It never turns off. These 2 pins always provide 5 volts. And there's some others like that down here and so forth, okay? We also have GPIOs, general purpose input outputs, and they come in 2 flavors. Some of them are pure GPIOs. On this diagram, if it doesn't have parentheses and information behind it, it's a pure GPIO. It doesn't have a second use. It's one that you can use to provide power on command so that you can light up an LED with it, or to watch for sensor input like a switch or a button or something a little bit more sophisticated. Those are pure GPIOs. And then these ones that have the parenthetical information behind them, these are multi-purpose GPIOs. You can either enable them and they will function in this mode, or if you don't enable this mode, then it will operate as a pure GPIO. And as we've noted before, GPIO pins are numbered, and their number has nothing to do with the connector number on the header pins. So GPIO 2 happens to be on pin 3. GPIO 17 happens to be on pin 11. All right, so last week we did a push button switch, and we used 2 buttons here. We used GPIO 3 on pin 5, and we use a ground on pin 6. If you still got your button, that's probably still hooked up like that. And that's a bit of a problem for today's exercise, kind of. Today's exercise says we're going to use this GPIO pin, and you have to. We are stuck with this one because of the way this particular LED status light works. We could do a different lab with a different set of instructions, that requires a lot more code and use one of these pure any other GPIO pin, but we're going to take advantage of some of the nature of this pin when it's in what's called UART mode. So we're going to use GPIO 14 on pin 8, and the tutorial says we should use the ground on pin 6. Well, that's no good if you still got your button installed from last week, because we're using that pin. So here's our good news. All grounds are the same. Envision these all connected together with a single little dot right here, wherever we want. So I got a wire that goes from pin 9 to that spot, and a wire that goes from pin 6 to that spot, and from pin 14 and so forth. So if you can't use a ground wire because it's already in use, a ground pin, pick any other one you want. It doesn't matter. They are all tied together. It's all just one big common ground plane, they call that. Okay, I'm going to talk one more thing about this particular pin. This pin is called the transmit pin of the UART, Universal Asynchronous Receiver Transmitter. Man, that's a mouthful. What's it mean? Serial port. So if you have a Raspberry Pi that you want to connect to without a monitor, without an SSH, I don't want to say without an SSH PuTTY session, but without going over the network to establish an SSH or Telnet or something like that, but you've got to get into the text environment, you use a serial port. And it takes 3 wires to pull that off. One is the UART transmitter, one is the UART receiver, and the other one is a ground pin. And you hook this up to a serial port, got a picture of that coming up for you, that's attached to a computer that can run your favorite terminal program like PuTTY or some other SSH program. And when this thing boots up, it'll start sending the boot up stuff that you would see on the screen over those wires, and you'll see it on the PuTTY terminal screen, and you can log in with SSH or Telnet or whatever, doesn't matter, and work with that. So what I want to tell you here then is if you are at that advanced stage where you're messing with serial ports, you're either going to have to disconnect that so you could do this status light. That's kind of silly. Or you're just going to say, nope, I'm not doing this method of status light because I need that GPIO pin for something else. We're going to have to use a different GPIO pin and a totally different approach. Oh, okay. All the way back. Okay, so there's the beginning. This is how you would hook up to a computer. You hook up the 3 wires, the transmit, the receive, and a ground wire. And here is a USB to serial port to UART adapter. So we hook up the transmit, the receive, and the ground to the appropriate pins here. And then this guy just plugs into the USB port of your computer that's running a terminal emulation program like PuTTY. Cool, eh? All right, so this is last week's project. This was our switch. They are not voltage dependent. I don't want to use the techno term right there. So we could wire this up backward. I can wire up this side of the switch to GPIO 14 and this side of the switch to the ground wire. It doesn't matter. And that's the way I still have my system wired up. I've got a switch using these 2 pins. And again, our tutorial says, I don't understand that because it thinks I want to use the ground wire, or it wants to use the ground wire from here. So how do we deal with that? Well, here's what the lab calls for. They want us to hook up a ground wire on pin 6. And here is our UART GPIO 14 on pin 8. Now, what I want to talk about right here is this circuit. Without getting real deep into electronics, Benjamin Franklin, who I adore, perhaps worship as a mortal, really screwed things up. For all of his great and intelligent work, he created the idea of polarity for us. So he was developing some early batteries, and he created this reference point. He called one side of the battery plus, and the other side of the battery minus. Well, we tend as a society, as a civilization, to think of plus as a thing that is surplus and a minus as thing that's deficit. So there is in people's minds who haven't studied electronics at even the most basic level, that voltage flows from the plus side to the minus side. We got extra electrons here and they're missing some here. Well, it's backward. The minus has a big old pile of electrons and they flow to the plus side. So I've got 3.3 volts here, and they're going to pass through this light emitting diode that only supports 2 volts. Well, that 1.3 volt differential is enough to kill the LED. So we're going to absorb some of those electrons and convert them to heat with this little guy. He's a resistor. He just takes some of those electrons and starts cooking the carbon in there and reducing that voltage going through here. This is the plus side, that's weird, I know, of a diode. It's hooked up to the minus. Well, no, it's not really. We got a black wire there, but and it's going to a ground. But again, ground is where all the electrons come from. So it's going to run through the plus side of this diode. It's going to make light, and then it's going to route it back here to this UART pin. So yeah, I know, it's funky stuff, and you wouldn't have to understand it. All we got to do is follow the instructions. Except again, we've got this problem here. We're using the pin 6 ground, but so is the switch. Solution: use a different ground wire. So I'm still going to use GPIO 14 on pin 8. Remember, this is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and all the odds. This is 2, 4, 6, 8. So I'm going to use pin 8. Yeah, okay, I did that right. I was looking at that, think I drew it backward, but nope, it's perfect. And then we'll flow back to the ground, or ground is actually going to flow this way over here on pin 14. So this is kind of cool. This is GPIO 14, and this is physical pin number 14. Easy way to remember it. If you wire this thing up backward, it's okay. The job of a diode is to prevent voltage from flowing backwards, so it's just not going to light up. If you put the resistor on the wrong side of the circuit, the LED will probably glow too brightly and burn out in short order. But big deal, they're a dime. So this is the way I've got it done on my system. I used a breadboard. There's my switch. I actually have the switch hooked up normally. It's just going from cables to the switch. I'm not going through the breadboard. Here's my pin 8, GPIO 14. Goes into the cathode side, the minus side of this guy. We go through the resistor and come back here to ground. So how you're going to wire that all up is up to you. You can use a breadboard. You can twist the things together if you don't want to solder. And once you got them twisted together, use some electrical tape to insulate them to make sure nothing shorts out on each other. Go on YouTube and find how to solder. But whatever you do, step number most important is never connect this stuff to or disconnect from the Pi while power is on. Said it before, I'll say it again. The fastest way to brick your Pi, to destroy it, is to short out pins that aren't designed to be connected together without some kind of handling or management.
So Banana has a question specific to what you're plugging in here.
Alrighty.
Because he has a 325. He has a PC switch with an integrated LED for this project.
Yeah. Okay, it's a beautiful way to go. And it wires up the same way.
But he says it has 2 positive leads, a red and a yellow.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to dig up the manual or get a multimeter or voltmeter to figure out which 2 wires are associated with the switch and which 2 wires are associated with the LED.
Right. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
You can just, a multimeter won't destroy an LED, and it doesn't have enough voltage to light one either. So what I would do is take one lead of, let's take the black lead of your multimeter and pick any wire at random, a black one if you got one, but if not, and then get a friend or get an alligator clip and hook it to one of the other 4 wires, other 3 wires, and then press the button and see if you get a reading on your voltometer. If that doesn't work, take that second lead and try it on another wire and do the button again, and then try it on the 3rd wire. If none of that works, move your first lead to the 2nd wire and try it with the 3rd. Sooner or later, you're going to find out which 2 are the switch wires, are the button wires. The other 2 are going to be your diode wires, probably red for the anode and the other color for cathode. But
anode and cathode. Wait, anode and cathode, what?
Sorry, anode the plus side, cathode the minus side.
Thank you.
So the LED here has 2 positive leads, but a red and yellow wire. So no, it doesn't. The LED doesn't have 2 positive leads. I'll guarantee you that. It's 1, but you're going to have to either, like I said, find the documentation or use a voltometer and start figuring it out in a binary test pattern that I just described. All right. You're right, Patricia Grace. That's where the key and kite stuff came from. He was gathering electricity from the key into this glass and leather battery. All right, moving back to my notes then. So I did all that happy stuff. I did all that. All right, so now what we got to do is you've built the circuit. You now have to, switching over to the other handy dandy camera. Oh, I'm doing share. That's not a camera switch. Cancel that. I love Zoom. I have to say
I know
that.
Zoom is our friend. It's our friend. Zoom makes the COVID world go round.
All right. Yeah, I tried this earlier. There's just not effective lighting on here, but
No, it's not.
I've got the breadboard that I at least showed you in the diagram.
Yeah.
So there's a wire going to one side of the LED. The other side of the LED goes to the resistor. That side of the resistor goes to another wire. So one of those wires, the correct one, goes to physical pin 14, that's a ground. The other goes to physical pin 8, GPIO 14.
Right.
And my wiring is done. And I did that, of course, while the power was off on the Pi.
Because as our friend Telowit puts it, that's
that's not one of those things where I lie about it and said, yeah, I did it. Trust me. I don't want to smoke a $35 Pi. So I turned the power off and I do. And it turns out when I did it the first time, my next step is always to double check it. And my next step is to get a friend to double check it. And when I double checked it, I missed a row of pins. So I didn't bother to look up and see what would have happened, but I'm glad I won that battle. So turn your Pi off, connect your 2 jumper wires to it, and then boot the Pi up. And that's where we're at now. All right, so that was all step 1. Build and connect your LED circuit. Step 2 and 3 each take about 10 seconds. So I'm not even gonna look at my notes because this one is just so easy. I've done it. I'm doing a mic, but this time I really have totally prepped it and I have it in notes if I have to. All right, let's establish a VNC connection first and foremost to the correct computer. Things we've learned. I know you can't see it yet. I'm still establishing the connection. Now we'll set you up. Share screen. Bingo, bingo. Okay, so this is a machine that's got last week's project on it, a power on, power off switch, and it also has the week before the lamp server on it. So step number 2 in this lab, this 3-step lab, is to go to the Raspberry Pi icon, go into Preferences, and into the Raspberry Pi configuration utility. And we go over to the interfaces. You can see that I have previously enabled SSH support and VNC support. So all I got to do now is enable the serial console support, which is grayed out. Why for are you grayed out? Oh, it's possible that I didn't undo one of the labs from the other part. So you're going to go in there and click enable serial port. Now there's a file. Now let's jump to the root folder here just to show you something in here. So there is a folder in your Raspberry Pi called boot. This is an interesting thing. All these other folders are in a Linux partition, in an ext4 partition. This boot folder is in a FAT partition. It's readable by a Microsoft computer. So I'm going to dive into there. It's also readable by a Linux computer. And there's a folder in here. Scott, would you take over for just 1 second? I dropped something here that I got to get. Stand by.
Sure.
Oh,
I'll take over because I don't actually know what you're about to type, but that's okay. It'll be great. So yeah, Dave's Pi has an elf infestation. Really, Telewith? Really? So can you overclock a Pi? That question has popped up. Yes. Dr. Upton, when he was here, we asked him that same question. Dr. Upton being the dude who founded the whole Pi thing. And we asked him about overclocking, and he's like, yeah, but why? Right? I mean, it's a system on a chip. So it's kind of just buy the next model up if you need to go faster.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. I dropped the power supply from another Pi under the table, and I'm using them to talk to each other. So I got a file in here called config.txt. This is a file that the computer reads to get the boot process going. If we take a look at it, we use the cat. There's not much in here. And we'll go into it for real so you can actually see it. Oops, clear. So I'm going to sudo it, sudo nano config.txt. And the line that we're adding may already be there and remmed out, or it may not. You're just going to put it down at the very end, and all you have to do is put a line that says enable underscore uart equals 1. And if it's already there and it's got the pound sign in front of it, just get rid of the pound sign. And then we save this file, Control X, yes, save it, enter to that name. And we're done, assuming that config enable serial port thing works. And I think that was grayed out because that line was grayed out right now, excuse me. So what you do next is you reboot it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this thing in reboot mode, and then I'm going to switch cameras, and we should see the status light come up as it starts to boot. And I want to explain a little bit of something about that as it happens. So I'll just do a regular shutdown here. Log out, shut down. I'll stop the share here, change cameras. Turn this killer light off. So the green LED that I'm looking for is here. Now what should happen, and this will vary a little bit by which version of Raspberry Pi that you have, excuse me, and maybe the version of the operating system that you're using, but it starts out by turning on the serial port and starts sending out messages just in case there is some terminal program hooked up to it. So you may see it flicker for a moment. And then once it's done with that, and this particular one, in my experience, it doesn't flicker very much. It just kind of comes on hard, because at that point, it just comes on hard. Still waiting for it to finish coming up. It's reading that config text file somewhere at this point. And I may have to go back in and re-enable that line just because we're still waiting, because that other line was remmed out. I'm waiting for the VNC to reconnect to it. You won't see that, but I will. Da-da-da. Sock puppet time?
Stock puppet time. Absolutely.
I have to do that down here.
Right. Exactly.
Come on, you. Oh, I did a shutdown, not a reboot. I'm such an idiot. I got my handy dandy little button here.
Yay.
Press button. Oh, look at that. Green light came on. You can see the glow on my hand.
We can see that actually. Either that or you just turned into a zombie, which would be fitting, you know.
It's so easy. I'll put that mask back on. I wish I had some kind of good filter here that I can put that on. It doesn't. Yeah, there it is. There's something glowing underneath my blue filter here.
I see it. I see it.
Boy, it's just so bright for this camera. It says, you got to be kidding. So now I'm waiting for the VNC to reattach to it. But what I'm going to do here is I'm not even going to bring you back to that. This is going to be really cool. I will know that it's fully booted back up when VNC is, there it goes. VNC is just reconnected to it. So it's up, it's running. So now what I'm going to do is kill it.
All right, sounds good.
With the filter on it. So you can see at least the glow goes away. We use Uncle Button. Okay, it has lost connection already with VNC, but it's still going down. There it goes, light just went out.
Okay, I see that.
So that's it. It's an on-off status light. The only thing we had to do was enable the serial port and put that enable_uart equals 1 in the whack boot whack config.txt. By the way, this thing goes down much quicker than it comes up, so I'm going to bring it up again. And the light turns on instantly this time, as it should.
Cool.
All right, back to main thing. Unshare. Oh, change cameras.
Yes, Kevin. It's all about the safety. Dave keeps a fire extinguisher next to his computer.
Yeah, it's called apple cider. Right.
So Banana says his LED works both ways. So perhaps it has some.
Oh, it's a bi-directional LED. Okay, that's what's going on with that. So there's actually two LEDs in there. They have a common ground. And when you light up one anode, one positive side, it does one color. And when you light up the other side, it does another color. Okay, those are cool. All right, how we doing here? It's 42.
Yeah, we're good.
All we gotta do is answer some questions.
And there aren't any. So our
There
work here
will
is
be.
done, man.
Yeah, so yeah, we got a few less people, but if you got some questions, fire them up right now. I have this favorite phrase that I tell this with my students when I do a live class. You know, we start class at 8 o'clock. If you're here at 8 o'clock, cool, I will have started. If you're not here at 8 o'clock, cool, I will have started. And if nobody turns up at 8 o'clock, cool, I can teach just as well to an empty room as I can to a full room. I'll run this thing to the bitter end.
Nice, nice.
All right, so where are we at question-wise? Everything has a BIOS. I like that one.
So there was questions while you stepped out.
Okay.
There were a couple of questions that came up on overclocking a Pi.
Okay.
And yes is the answer.
By all means. And there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of ways to do it. And by a whole bunch of ways, what I mean is there are all kinds of different settings. It's all done in one menu. Let me show you that. Can I do it on the computer we just used? Let's take a look. Okay, now I'll share this with you. All right, so we're in a new install of a Raspberry Pi. We use that same utility that I just used to enable the serial port. Let's go in, by the way, and see what's going on with that real quick. Interfaces, serial console. There we go. Now I can enable it because it's supported. All right, so we do that in the performance menu. And apparently on this particular model, it's not available. But if you go to a Raz 4 or some of the other ones, You pull down here and you select overclocking on, then some other menus come up here, including voltage menus for the CPU, voltage values for memory, frequencies that you want to run the CPU at. And of course, as with all overclocking, if you're going to mess with overclocking, no, I don't want to reboot now. Yeah, I do. I'll close out of here. I could use the button, huh? Okay, that'll come back. So if you're going to overclock, then there is a reason to use additional cooling. That makes sense?
Right. I mean, that's the big thing with overclocking is you're basically making the thing run faster, adding more voltage, therefore heating things up, and
And the faster a CPU runs, you don't add more voltage.
That's not a pie you want to bake.
That's right.
It was a great line. I had to get it out.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dave's pie is an elf infestation. That's it. We're done. Yes, Banana. That's
We're
it.
totally done with questions at this point. So unless you guys have any questions,
I'm sweating. I am so going to use that.
Sudo.
Yeah. I don't know where and I don't know how, but that one goes in the locker. I got a use for that somehow. Biggest issue is the wiring. Yeah. Yeah. So watch it in the archive. These are the things that I would like to pre-make as kits and make available to folks. So I've been talking to the higher ups about working up some kind of kit that does a year's worth of our projects as a single pick up everything and nothing you have to solder.
Right, because some of us in soldering is just not a thing, man.
I got my nephew a soldering iron a couple of weeks ago to send it to him. He's freshman in high school this year, so it's time to learn to solder. Banana, Scott Jernigan, my LED is both ways. Okay. Well, there's so many ways to take that. Say that again, Banana, on Discord later. We'll have some fun with it.
I posted the Discord link. I won't be on there after this. I have a meeting with my publisher, but I'll be on a little later.
I'll be on almost right away. We got to do our 5 minutes worth of post activity here, and then I'll be hanging there.
Yep.
Hey, the viewership has gone back up.
Well, there you go.
Elbow still eating? Good Lord, Alice, you're going to give that poor guy a complex. We used to say that. Sudo apt get towel. Yeah, I'm liking that. I can solder. It won't be pretty, but it's stuck together. Fair enough.
Right. That's pretty much what needs to happen.
Okay.
We're there.
We're caught up on questions here. I figured this was going to go quick enough that we would dry up on questions. And so I put a lot of thought into what can I do to fill space? And what I came up with was nothing. So we can put the masks back on. Now, let me tell you a little bit about upcoming projects and some things like that. And some neat things have been going on with projects that we've been doing. Pi-hole. So if there's anybody here who wasn't here when we did Pi-hole, Pi-hole is a box. It's a Raspberry Pi, but it can be done on other computers that lives between your DNS server and your computer or computers. So normally you've got your computer, your desktop, your laptop, your whatever, and you configure for it 1 or 2 or 3 sometimes preferred DNS servers. Now you know that this is a TCP/IP world, and in TCP/IP there are no such thing as words. So you can't really go to a site called www.awesomelycoolwonderfulfantasticplace.com. The system has to stop and say, wait a minute, there is this place with that name, and I got to replace that with an IP address. So he calls out your first preferred DNS server and said, hey, there's a name of a web server out there. Here's its fully qualified domain name. Can you look up the IP address for me and send that back so I can actually form a correct packet? and maybe that DNS server knows the information, and maybe he's got to say, no, but hang on, I'll check with my friend higher up, and there's a lot of poking around and things like that. But eventually the information comes back, an IP address comes back, and your computer can build an effective packet and send it out with IP numbers in there. Well, what we're going to do is with a Pi-hole, we intercept that, and it says, I see the name, or I'll go research the IP address for you, and then I'm going to check it against the block list. And if it's not on the block list, he's going to send the information back to your computer, and your computer is going to make a direct call out. If it's on a block list, he won't even report back to your computer. Your computer will just say it wasn't able to find that. It'll give a 404 error, or a 503 error, or something like that. Now, here's why Pi-hole is cool. There are plenty of websites that we want to go to that aren't on the block list, but they call advertisements that may be on the block list. So when those advertisers get called, the message goes to the Pi-hole. The Pi-hole says, nah, I'm not going to get that advertiser's IP address for you. Forget it. And your machine stays clean and clear of many ads. It can't wipe all of them out. There are some sites that maintain their own ads at their own place, and you can't block a site without blocking its ads, or you can't block the ads without blocking the whole site. YouTube is particularly good or bad about that. You can't block ads on YouTube's effectively with Pi-hole. So I've been watching a lot of Pi-hole news since I've got mine up, and there are lots of people doing really wacky and crazy things. The default Pi-hole right now comes with a block list. It's actually a pair of them that collectively have about 84,000 blocked IP addresses or domains in it. Yeah, apparently that's nothing. There are folks out there who are building and collecting block lists with millions, 2.8 million blocks. And then people poll them all the time. Hey, how much better or worse is this? I can't really tell the difference, because it looks like they've got most of the main ones pretty well documented in here. And of course, when you start adding all of that cruft, that's a Michael Smyer word, into the databases, it does slow the Pi-hole operation down. Let me show you that, or tell you about one unfortunate experience that I encountered personally as a result of this. In order to get all of the computers in my home, about 20 something of them, when you count Pis and televisions and smart boxes and regular old computers, to do this, I would have to manually go into each one, into an IP configuration box, and say, hey, my preferred DNS server is the IP address of my Pi-hole. Don't want to do that. Much easier to do that as a one-shot setting in the DHCP server that's in my Soho router. It's an ASUS Soho router. And here's where I ran into the one thing that I've ever been dissatisfied with about this otherwise wonderful line of routers.
Okay.
In your Windows computer, you have entries for two DNS servers, a preferred server and a secondary. So if your preferred server is unavailable, maybe I shut the Pi-hole down for a couple of minutes to do something, then it'll make calls to my secondary, just won't use the Pi-hole. Well, in the DHCP server of the ASUS, there is only room for one. You get a single preferred DNS server and live with it. So if that's passing it out to all the devices in my home, if I ever take my Pi-hole down, every system will be dead because it can't make DNS calls and it can't get out to the web. So what I would have to do in that case is go back and either get the Pi-hole up and running, or maybe have another one up and running that's ready to go in with the same address, or manually reconfigure the machines that need to be on right now. What an awful and unfortunate pain. And I've looked this up online all over the place, and everybody has the same gripe. Nobody has a fix. So.
Wow.
So somebody, I think Brandon, it might have been Brendan, but there's a Brandon and a Brendan over there.
Right. There are both.
Asked what their, what my recommendation for his home router was, and to work with Pi-hole. And I said, look, it's just pretty much what I described to you in much shorter fashion. Yeah. I like ASUS, except for this fact. He was proposing, and I'm just curious what you guys think. What's your in-home Soho router, or if you could get the one you wanted, what would it be? How are we doing here time-wise? 54, okay. He was looking at the Ubiquity Dreamcast, Dream Machine, Dream something or other. Apparently very pricey. I know that Mike and Michael are big fans of Ubiquity Soho routers. I have no personal experience with them, so
Yeah, Michael's a
everybody else
major
was
fan.
thinking, especially if you've got a Pi hole and you're up and running, what are you using? And while that's happening, is there RDB for Pi? What's RDB?
RGB, the little LED
Yeah,
glowy lights.
absolutely. I have on my possible agenda.
Glowy lights. Wow.
I've got the
Okay.
interfaces. I got 4 interfaces for them. So, okay, there was the fix. The trick with them is there's not enough natural power coming out of the GPIO pins to feed them, so you need a secondary power source. And but I'll do that. I've got on my list. PyCruft should be flaky. Right. So as Scott says, if you're not playing with Pi-hole, one of the best DNS public servers out there is run by Google at 8.8.8.8. They got a secondary server at 8.8.4.4. And I just saw a thread last night or this morning about somebody who was doing some response timing on them. And right now, everybody knows about 8.8.8.8, not as many people about 8.8.4.4. And it has a much faster response time as a result, apparently as a result.
Cool.
For IP6, we won't need DNS anymore. We certainly need DNS for IP6, Kevin, because there's still fully qualified domain names and there's still IP addresses. Something's got to look them up. The DNS servers that live out there can handle IPv6. An IPv4 entry in a DNS server is called an A record. An IPv6 in a DNS server is called a quad A record. It's called AAAA. So yep, sure need them. What we don't need with IP6 anymore is NAT routers. There's enough IPv6s that we all get assigned what they call global addresses, what we call in IPv4 a public address. Is there a DNS for IPv6? Yes. Yeah. Again, all the DNS servers out there are fully supportive of IPv4 and IPv6. Stop trying the OSINT for your router attacks. You got it. All right, let me throw up the special of the week again, contact info, and we'll start winding down.
Okay, sounds good.
Because I can do that. Check if there's anything here that I missed that anybody needs to see. Okay, so there's our special of the week. 50 points off Total Testers, Total Tester Sim bundles, and Sec Plus Total Tester. Use the date from Monday in American style, 10/26/2020, good through November 1st. Go to www.totalsim.com, buy some cool stuff. Again, remember also today is a one-day sale at Udemy. So go do some hunting. If you didn't want to post a question today or didn't get one posted that you had in mind, contact me or Scott at davar@totalsim.com or scottj@totalsim.com. And Scott's Skyrimming this weekend. So,
No. I'm working on Security Plus.
well, of course you are, but you got to have a brain break. And again, just a reminder, I know it's not a ton of us here, but we're just doing kind of an experiment. If you would be kind enough to like and or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Total Seminar channel, the one you're watching right now, we would appreciate it just for some experimental values. Thank you. Anything good this weekend besides work, Scott?
Well, yeah, Halloween.
Right, your neighborhood. I just so put it out of my mind since we're not doing it.
Yeah,
Like
it's just weird. My neighborhood, people just get bussed in. I have no idea what tomorrow's going to be like.
Okay.
To be honest.
Well, I'm going to drive down then.
Yeah, I mean, we could have nobody.
My cars.
Yeah, I mean,
I won't stop in. I know you won't let me in. Even if I'm masked and gloves and have a full hazmat suit.
right. And yes, John, Mandalorian drops this weekend, season 2.
Yep.
So re-upping my Disney subscription.
No spoilers, anybody. I'm holding off for a couple of weeks and then binging. We binged the first season in 2 nights or so, maybe 3 nights. Man, that was just delicious. Delicious.
It's fun having the extra. I don't know.
Yeah.
There are geeks like us, and I think there are geeks like you too, because
Has it? All right, time's up. Some of the answers came up. We'll look at them on Monday. Mike's on regular time Monday. Is he doing a special? Is he picking anything up? I don't remember.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I think it's just questions. He's probably going to come up with something. He always does.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys all have a safe Halloween. Good weather, good health to you all. And we will see you at Mike's AMA on Monday. Have a good weekend. Goodbye. Oh, 2 hands. Okay.
I know, right? Take care.
Now we'll watch for the Michael signal and then we kill this.